All right, so I've been seeing a lot of videos about ring culture in NBA, right? And how it's ridiculous and how it's not too bad and people arguing about it. But one of the things that no one seems to be able to answer is where it originated from, which is what I'm about to do in this video. I'm going to tell you the whole story and how it came to be, and it's kind of amazing to know this. So, to begin with, we must go back to the 1960s. There's two great players in the 1960s where this originated from: Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain was, by many people, right, who saw them play, clearly a better player. Statistically speaking, he's the record book. He has all the stats ever, right? And physically speaking, he's more physically gifted than Bill Russell. He's bigger, he's taller, he's stronger, he's faster, he jumps higher, he has better conditioning. He's a better player overall. At least that's what you should think. But how do you sell the game? How do you sell a rivalry that is so lopsided? Narratives. And they did that. So who do you blame? The media. Just remember that point, right? But what is the narrative that the media created to sell the game, to sell the rivalry between Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell? It had to do with winning and losing. In the media's eyes, the way they like to describe it was as if Wilt Chamberlain did not know how to win. Therefore, Bill Russell was a better player because Bill Russell had the it factor. He just understood how to win. It was almost like if it was a mentality that Wilt did not have. That's the way they made it seem. And that narrative carried for a long time, by the way, because Superman needs his kryptonite. And it wasn't the free throws, it was the winning. They considered him a loser because he was too good to lose. Therefore, we call you a loser. Kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you, but that narrative carried till the end of his career. Now, he ended up winning 2 rings. So that narrative, even though it was still there because what the media had done, it had done pretty irreversible damage, to be honest. I mean, some of those narratives are still believed till today. I mean, think about that was 60 years ago. But when Wilt retired, the fans appreciated him. And even though the media had that narrative, they did not believe it. The fans considered Wilt Chamberlain the greatest player of all time. This was true even up until the 90s. In 1997, during the 50 Greatest Players of All Time introduction, Wilt Chamberlain got the loudest ovation over Michael Jordan. The fans loved Wilt. Why? I don't really know. But they knew that he had all the stats in the world. And even during the polls, there was polls in the 1990s where Wilt was ranked number 1 above Michael Jordan. And that was the debate, Wilt or Jordan, 1 and 2. But now you get to the second part of the ring culture talk, Michael Jordan. So with Michael Jordan, to explain something with you is, Michael Jordan had the other component that made the ring talk or the ring culture unbearable and just annoying: the marketing. Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, they were marketed as like a team game, right? The media sold the game for them. But Michael Jordan was marketed as a player because him as an individual player made so much money for brands and companies in the NBA. So, what do I mean by this? Nike, Gatorade, McDonald's, any sponsor that Michael Jordan had promoted him as the greatest player of all time, even back in 1987-88, before he had any rings. Now, this is good for them because it allowed them to make a lot of money, and Michael Jordan got a lot of money from it, and he got incredible promotion. But what happened? The minds of the people were being conditioned to believe that Michael was the greatest player of all time before he had any rings. Now, Michael, as an individual, was phenomenal. Could be argued as the greatest player of all time. That's how good he was. But this is before he had rings. So why did it change? See, if you fast forward 10 years from 1987 to 1997, Michael had 5 rings, but yet was not considered the greatest player over Wilt Chamberlain because Wilt, only having 2 rings, had all the statistics and all the records. Then 2 years later, Wilt Chamberlain passes away. Now this is 1999. See, before 1999, Wilt Chamberlain was a regular on the media. He would go on talk show hosts and he would talk basketball. The media loved Wilt. And if they ever said anything about him, he would be quick to respond. But when Wilt Chamberlain passed away, he could no longer respond. So what happened? Now the talks shifted. Because remember I said that there was a debate between Wilt and Jordan? Now the media wanted Jordan to be considered the greatest player of all time because he brought the money in. So how do you win the case for Jordan over Wilt? To be honest with you, if you know basketball history, the only point that Jordan has over Wilt truly is the rings, is the 6-0 in the finals. So that's what the media did. So the media started discrediting Wilt Chamberlain, taking him from the consensus greatest player of all time to this point is now not even considered top 10, right? There's a lot of narratives that destroyed his career, but one of them was the ring talk. And they elevated Michael Jordan. They made it seem as if Michael Jordan was considered the greatest player of all time simply because he was 6-0. And that for anybody to catch that record or to be considered the greatest of all time over Michael Jordan, they would have to supersede the 6-0 record, maybe get 7-0 or something ridiculous, right? Now you bring into Kobe into the question, right? The media, the ratings, that debate was a while, right? Or was a thing for a while. And then comes LeBron. And this is where ring culture takes it to a whole new level. Because LeBron is someone who our eyes are able to see. He has all the TV. He has high quality high quality footage, right? We can see LeBron in 4K. We really can't see Michael Jordan in 4K, right? He has very few games where the quality is anywhere near to the quality that we have today. So how do you keep the debate going? You make it about ring culture. That way LeBron, as great as he is chasing that ring, and that talk never ends. That's where ring culture originated from. That's where it was taken to, and that's why it's very obnoxious. It's, if you were to describe it, it is a way to move the goalposts. That's what ring culture is about. And here's a question for the people who disagree with me. If Michael Jordan had 6 rings, right? Or Michael Jordan has 6 rings, he's considered the greatest player of all time. But I've heard people say this. Michael Jordan is the best player they've ever seen with their eyes. If Michael Jordan had 0 rings instead of 6, would he still be considered in your eyes as the best player you've ever seen? Or would it change? Because Michael Jordan having 6 rings is not the reason he should be the greatest player of all time. Michael Jordan should be considered the greatest player of all time simply because he is the best player of all time. And if you believe LeBron is the best player of all time, it shouldn't be because he has 4 rings or because he made the finals 10 times or because he carried a lot of bad teams to greatness that they've never been able to. Although that is, a nod to him for being great. But it's because as a player, individually, he is better than everybody ever. Now, as a basketball fan myself and a basketball historian, I like to claim, I consider Wilt the best player ever. Why? Not because he won 2 rings and not because he has all the record books, right, or owns all the records in the record book. Literally, the record book is named after him. He's considered the record book. But because as a player, he impacts the game at a great level in more areas than anybody in NBA history. There's nobody who has the combination of scoring, rebounding, and playmaking and defense as he does. So that's why I consider Wilt the best player ever. Now, you can disagree, but I doubt you probably know more basketball history than me. And that's not saying it cocky, but I wanted to say that just because it sounds funny. But anyways, that's my opinion. I hope you shared yours. God bless ye. Get saved if you're not saved. And I'll see you guys soon. And I'm probably going to make a couple TikToks. Anyways, Jesus loves you. Goodbye. One more second. Goodbye.